Welcome back to Morning Express. We're glad you're watching. It is the 17th day of October 2013, 7:28 a.m. A big day for Matungulu constituency. Matungulu constituency, today they're voting for the next member of parliament following a successful election petition. And that is in, Matungulu is in which constituency? Makueni County. Matungulu constituency is in Makueni County. Then it is also Kibwezi as well in Makueni. That is in Makueni. Matungulu is in Machakos County. I beg your pardon. Quite a number of these by-elections and names going around here. And of course, there's Siaya County. And remember, we have reporters on the ground. In a short while, we'll be linking up with them to get the situation on the ground. But we spoke to Fred Omulo earlier. He told us the polling stations opened at 6 a.m. Voters have turned out. No incidents so far reported. Heavy security on the ground as well. And they said that about 9 p.m. the IEBC official said they should be knowing who the next governor will be. 3 contestants in that one, including the immediate former governor, who was Colonel Rasanga, and the petitioner William Udwal. An update also from Kibwezi West parliamentary seat. That contest, Shamuli is following that for us. Patrick Musimba, Kaleme Ndile, Juliana Kisimbi are competing to see who will be the next member of parliament. Also, their polling stations opened quite early. The result also expected early evening. The polling stations will be closing at 5 p.m. No incidents there reported. Everybody has turned out to vote. The biggest question remains, this being a by-election, the concern has always been about turnout. So as we go through the day and our coverage throughout, our extensive coverage today on the by-elections, we'll be monitoring that situation to see how voters turn out. Will they turn up in good numbers? And Matungulu also, Samogena is there for us. The concern has been about some of the clashes in the Kibwezi West parliamentary election, the clashes between supporters of Ndile and Musimba, but security officers on the ground monitoring that. Remember, provisional results will be available www.iebc.or.ke. So even you, if you have access to internet, you can always be able to follow those and see how that situation unfolds. Now, it is Thursday, and every Thursday we have conversations around our nationhood. And just to remind you our question of the day so that you can engage with us on our discussion this morning, we're asking you, do you support the move by members of parliament to scrap the National Cohesion and Integration Commission? There are some MPs who want that to happen. In fact, today, the Parliamentary Committee on Justice will be meeting to have that discussion. There are those who are for the move. They say that the commission has wasted, is a tax burden to the taxpayers, is a burden to the taxpayers, and some say it has not fulfilled its mandate effectively in terms of ensuring cohesiveness in the country. Is that the case? How can we foster national cohesion? Well, let me introduce you my guest this morning. We are joined by Reverend Dr. Geoffrey Njuguna to my extreme left. He's a pastor at Deliverance Church, senior pastor.
Yes,
thank you very much for making time for us.
Welcome.
And in the middle there is Ken, of course, who's Member of Parliament, Kibra. So we shall not say Kibera, it's Kibra. It's Kibra. And right next to me is the lovely Dr. Wamboi Waithaka, Treasurer, Doctors Union.
Yes, thank you.
Asante sana all for being with us this morning. I don't know if any of us here is 50 years old. Maybe to put us on the spot. But Kenya is 50.
Yes.
I'm seeing already looking at each other wondering,
above 50.
Above 50?
Now 57.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the rest we are aiming.
Yeah.
All right. So Kenya is at 50, and it's interesting that at this particular point in our nation's history, we're still having this conversation. We're still trying to figure out how we live together in peace and harmony, how we work that out. Is that misplaced? Should we be having a different conversation 50 years on? I'll start with you, Pastor.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, this is a spiritual situation. It's a heart issue. And I think Kenya, as Kenyans, we are faced with a bigger challenge than some of the people elsewhere, because we find ourselves having 42 people groups. So it will require a greater determination for us to be able to understand it is a value. It's not a disadvantage. Actually, when I was several years in the US doing my studies, people always used to think I'm a genius because I speak 3 languages. My mother tongue, Kiswahili, and English. Because most of them only speak one. So my view is since we have already in the Vision 2030 talked about national values, can we build on our national values, but we learn to appreciate that we are a country with diversity? And of course, even other countries, of course, have so many people, only that our problems are aggravated. And for me, I've taken this challenge so seriously that I did my dissertation, my doctoral program on national reconciliation, overcoming negative ethnicity. Yeah. Because that's something we must conquer. And this conversation was regrettable that, of course, the commission has been disbanded because of various reasons. But this is a conversation we cannot do away with. The need of appreciating each other from our different communities and not feeling like we are antagonists because we share one country. And I usually say that Kenya cannot be Kenya without any of the communities, however big, however small. Okay. We must learn what it is to live with each other as brothers. Also see the value. When I see these people like, say someone like Rudisha and others in Rift Valley, getting those medals out there, I'm so glad they are Kenyan. That time we all celebrate, but when you think about our doctors, we think about, so why don't we appreciate, because each one of us is bringing something to the national value of the country, and celebrate what we can share as positive and try to scale down on that which is negative.
All right, Mheshimiwa, you've heard what the pastor, the Reverend, had to say there. It's something we've heard, but some would argue it's easier said than done. But let's focus on the national values. Let's focus on bringing out the best in our diversity. Indeed, our diversity is a good thing. Yeah. But that 50 years on, cohesion we're still trying to figure out, how do I live with her, with you? And sometimes, yes, we see the best of us coming out, as in the cases of when we win in those athletics cases, unfortunate, tragic incident at the Westgate, but we saw people coming together. Right. But 2 weeks, 3 weeks after that, we are back to the normal, stereotypes, the normal discussions. Yeah.
Well, I'd say, first of all, the key thing is Kenya is a very hyper-competitive country.
Right.
We have little resources, we have too many people. So let's not just focus on national cohesion, which is important, but we'll never get there until we focus on family planning. And I'm happy we're sitting next to the doctor here, because Kenya has too many people. We're 50 years old as a country. At independence, we only had 8 million Kenyans. Today, we are more than 40 million people. Right. That's a 5-fold increase in our population. Our water access, our land access, our food access has not increased 5 times. Our access to employment opportunities, our economic output has not increased that much. So we do not have resources to take care of our population. And that's why we're very hyper-competitive. Now, you can talk about national unity and everything, but in the end, people go to their tribes, to a group of relatives who they think are the closest to take care of their interests. How do I get into the KDF? Which is happening right now. Do I know someone there who's from my ethnic community? When I go into that hospital, will I get treated well based on my last name or not? So it's some of these things that are happening because we have very little resources. We have too many people. When it comes to a chance to get into the university, to get a job, anyway, you name it, it comes down to that. There's too many people, the economy is too small, there's too few opportunities. So we really need to look back and say, how serious are we about controlling our population, because climate change is happening, global, economics are happening, and until we change that, it's going to be really always tough. So part of it was also the fault of our leaders and our politicians, how then they use those tribes to get access to power for themselves. So leaders like myself have to be very careful and very responsible. But I'm just saying, instead of just aspiring, we also have to take preventive measures. So when you mention the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, when you mention the ICC that's on the headlines today, those have actually had a way to control bad behavior and bad tendencies and impulses amongst our leaders to use negative ethnicity to divide us while they use it to rise to power for their own interests. So it's twofold.
It's twofold. So there's the role of the leaders, but interesting point that you've brought in, and very important, about the strain on resources. And Wamboy, I'll bring you in. If that is sorted out, that strain that is experienced around the country, will we now have a better, different conversation?
Really, really, I have to, rolled me up a little bit. I do not think Kenya's problem is population. I don't think we have too many people and too little resources that we are now struggling for the little thing, fighting for it. It's because the resources that we have currently, we are unable to manage them well. The population we have is perfect. We have right now the population curve. They say it's from 70 to 0. It looks like this, shaped like this, slim, and then it has a big bulge, the youth bulge, and then small, the children. So we have this resource that is such a great resource. At this stage, right now where we are, the bulk of the population is not competing. They're in school. They're trying to get out. Every year they're graduating, moving to the next class, So the universities are getting packed and packed. Our question should not be how do we control this population, unless you do something drastic like kill them all. Well, the only thing you can do is prepare for them. So I think we get into a little tricky situation when we start telling people to plan. Family planning is good. You need to plan your resources, space your children for your own health, for the community, but that is not Kenya's problem. When we turn that attention there, we forget what we're doing on this side.
In your opinion, what is the problem? Why are we still having this conversation 50 years on?
I think our problem is now I'll talk very personally because I can't speak generally for everyone, but I think from my observation, our problem is the me. I am not comfortable with the me. So if I'm not comfortable with me, I cannot be comfortable with you. And if I'm not comfortable with you, we can't be comfortable in this house and in this community and in this tribe. I'm not able to sit somewhere and say comfortably, I'm Wambui, I'm a woman, I'm a doctor, I'm Kikuyu, I am Catholic, I am, all these layers, they seem to be, we've spent so much time shaming them. We put them down. You don't want to talk about being a woman because, we don't talk about that. Just do what you need to do. Don't talk about being a doctor because you're going to oppress everyone. Right. Just do what you need to do. Don't talk about being a Kikuyu because you guys it's just going to bring a whole tribal thing. But if I do not recognize and I'm not loyal to my own identity, how will I be loyal or respectful to yours? If I'm not loyal and respectful to my own, if you're sitting here, I'm just going to push a stereotype. And the individual is so hurtful. From a very young age, you say something in class to another child in the class about Muslims. And the way you've pinched them, you've hurt them in such a way, as a small person, one person, in such a way that it continues to build. So now you have a triple effect, that everything that you've said about me at this point, now I've hidden that part of my identity, then I come out into the community, and then I come out, and then the worst thing about oppressing someone, and when they hide it, is you wait until the moment comes of coming out. So if I'm not Wambui, how can I be Kenyan? Okay. So it's important that it's important that we recognize our strengths and our role and the person that we are as an identity, and then we can now spread it out and say, also, within this territory, there are these people called Kenyans and they are me. And what does that mean for me? How much more? What is my responsibility to them? How much am I supposed to love them? How much am I supposed to take care of them? How much am I not supposed to do?
Right.
Yes.
All right. We're having by-elections today in the 3 counties, and there's also some wards also having by-elections. And elections in Kenya have seemingly become an issue of life and death. The worst example, of course, or best example in a very sadistic way, the 2007 election, to just bring out that aspect of life and death. And it becomes a real test then for cohesion every time we have an election. Every time we are saying we're going to the polls, especially in the general elections, there's always, especially, and we saw that effort this time around, the peace messages, the peace campaign began very early. Why? Because everybody knew, here we go again. Be ready, be prepared. This could go down real bad. So let's rally around this peace message. Yes. So why is it our elections? Because we will continue to have elections. We are a democratic country. We cannot say we're going to sit and wait for somebody to drop leaders for us. We need this kind to continue. But how come everything else ceases? All this talk about peace, all this talk about our variety, our diversity becoming, our unity, all this tolerance, all those things we know and we've studied and, we preach about and encourage. When it comes to elections, all that ceases to matter. It's about the very wrong things. Cohesion comes to the test. Why is that, and what can be done?
I think several issues I can point out. Number one, we have not created our leadership as a platform of serving. Our leadership is seen as an opportunity to earn. And that's why now the debate is very big right now. And we have heard about people complain about the politicians. But the only thing they easily agree on when in parliament is about their pay packs.
That's true.
And of course, well, even if you said it was not true, of course, we all read it and we see it. But the key thing is this. I would sincerely desire that we have more servant leaders, because in my research, and this is documented, I did a research, I did across the board, across tribes, across regions, and everybody says our greatest challenge, and I didn't know I was going to come and sit next to a politician, I didn't respect you, you have a role to play, but do you know, it was agreed even among themselves that our greatest impediment to our cohesion, especially surrounding elections, are the politicians themselves, because they really like going into their own, tribal cocoons. And that's something that we see. But really, what do we expect? If we have shown them, if we have shown them that the only way we can strengthen them is that way. I like when somebody can appeal nationally. But before we get there, what I would wish is to see the salaries of MPs brought down to where it does not become a competition to earn, so that people cannot complain that I resigned my business, now you are not paying me. And they knew, like now I feel sorry for Serem. I really don't envy what she's doing, what she's dealing right now, because everybody is against her. But what are we talking about, the national cake? Where is this money? We passed a constitution that has devolution, has all these things, but nobody's telling us how do we increase the finances to be able to pay the county representative well, to pay the MP better, and then still address the plight of the joblessness of the youth, plus the corruption challenge. How many of us are embarrassed to know that a third of a national budget can be accounted to have gone to corruption? And who is that? Again, the values, national values. Are we going to be serious? Of course, nobody will come to church when I invite them to preach to them, or to the mosque or whatever somebody should go to run these things. But are we going to really be serious about wanting to bring cohesion, because we are willing to care for everybody, but we are not looking, how can I get this, how can I get this? So
the leadership, a big role, and we're glad we have you, Member of Parliament, Kibra.
About your salary?
It brings down, it's really this discussion about salaries, there's now this that, Members of Parliament who do not want to be referred to as state officers. And, it's being read as, so that now they can be able to really cook those numbers and increase their salaries. I don't know in which category you fall when it comes to that discussion, but the place of leadership, and you're one of them, speak for them.
And you also had an election, so tell us about that as well.
Yes.
So let me just quickly say, first of all, to the people of Siaya, Kibwezi and Matungulu, you have a date with destiny. Choose your leaders well, choose them in peace. Your neighbor will still be your neighbor tomorrow, regardless of who's chosen. So don't fight each other. Violence is not good. Let me send that message for people. I have my preferred candidates. I love the gentleman in Matungulu, Stephen Mule. I was out there campaigning for him this week. And I say, Stephen Mule, Yule. So I'm not allowed to campaign too much, but elect Stephen Mule in Machakos, Matungulu. But let's get back to the question of what's happening in Kenya. It's very easy for Kenyans to demonize their leaders. We went to election March 4th. Kenyans chose us, including myself, as the best amongst everybody they had, or as the most persuasive. We went and asked for the vote, we canvassed, they chose us. You don't turn around in a month and condemn these people and say this is a problem of this country forever. As a young person in leadership in this country for the first time, people don't know me well. So when you start tarring me and saying, this is just another pig like all the rest of us. You don't know my story, you you don't know what I'm doing and why I'm in leadership and what has driven me and inspired me to be there. So let's just be very careful. Let me tell you, Kenya is a good country. We have so much going for us. And one of the key things is look at our democratic system. We just passed a constitution after trying in 2005, 2007, all the way to now 2010. We have a new constitution to implement. And devolution, as part of that constitution, is going to help us to reduce some of this competition before, where we saw all the corruption and mismanagement at the national level. Let's go to the local level where we can hold our local leaders accountable, who understand our local priorities, and change and improve the lives of our people, especially even in areas like education. I'm glad you have the perspective that our youth are an asset to us. I believe they're an asset to us. They're also a risk to us if we do not invest in them fully, properly. It's not just education for the sake of it. It has to be a quality education that's relevant for the 21st century. A young boy growing up in Kibra today is in class 6, is not competing against Kenyan kids in class 6. He's competing against kids in Shanghai, he's competing against kids in Moscow, he's competing against kids in Brazil, and we have to make sure is the Kenyan government and Kenyan leaders like myself making sure he's getting the best quality class 6 education. So those are the type of things.
Mheshimiwa, I want to take you back to the elections, because somebody watching this, the biggest question still continues to be, why are our elections life and death? Is it the problem with our politicians, or is it us as the people who listen to this politicians say all these things and take them so closely to heart and go, what, neighbor turns against neighbor, we kill each other?
Let me tell you something very simple. Part of it is the leadership. But the other truth is, since we got multi-party elections and people used to see winner-take-all system, which used to be the presidency, you are in or you're out, and you'll be in the cold, right? Now we've gone to devolution and county government. There's more outlets. People like myself, who are not tycoons, can get into power and believe and serve the people, right? So what I'm saying is, look at 2002. When it was Uhuru Kenyatta versus Mwai Kibaki, nobody was killed. Not one person. Do you understand me? What changed so that when it was Raila versus Kibaki, something happened? Do you see what I'm saying? So there is something to be explained there. But I'm saying, Kenyans, look, the current crop of leadership we have, let's hold them accountable and let's have high expectations for them. Let's reach them on Twitter, let's call them on phone, let's walk to their offices and engage them, not just to condemn them, but actually to inspire them and push them and tell them these are our priorities, this is how we want you to unite us, this is how we want you to serve us. Let me just finish by telling you, if you look at countries such as Syria, see what's happening there. Kenya is a blessed country. If you look at a country such as Egypt, they had a revolution and they're back to a military leadership. In Kenya, we went to March 13th elections on March 2013, and we elected a new parliament of 349 members, more than 270 of whom have never been in that parliament before. That's a revolution by any standard. We've got a new class of leadership. We've got 47 new governors who we've never had before. Let us make sure they serve us because we elected them peacefully, and let us hold them to high standards. If we pay them well, fine. If they don't do well, and I earn a good salary and I don't serve well, kick me out in 4 years or recall me even sooner. So we have these systems in place, and Kenya is a good country in many ways. Let's not be too eager to condemn and dampen everything.
But we don't see a lot of this, that in the next 4 years you say, no, we're done with this one. We still see the same people coming back. In these by-elections, we're not saying anybody was found guilty for something, but it's interesting to note that all those people whose elections were nullified are contesting again. And we don't know who will win, but you know, at the end of the day, the question remains, do we learn lessons? And when you said to hold leaders to account on Twitter, to tweet them, to walk to their offices, the middle class will tweet away. But the people and the majority who are mashinani just sit and watch. Then they come, they're told all these things, and you know, it becomes this vicious cycle. With us, the middle class who are there, they'll tweet, they'll say all these things, but they're not the people at the political rallies where some of these very, you know, polarizing things are said.
I think it's fear. I think we'll conquer our elections when we conquer our fear of each other. What happens during every election is we're afraid that if these guys get it, we're all in big trouble. So we're afraid of each other. We are literally afraid. You sit in, I'm Kikuyu, so I'm from Kikuyu places, and we'll sit amongst people and they say, if those Luos get power, we are finished. So you're asking them, finished, what happens? They'll put like some gas in the air, and how will we be finished, really? And no one can really explain that. We've been passed on this fear of each other, so we are afraid of each other. So when it comes to a time of election, you retreat to what you know, what you feel is safer. Most of the time, it's really not safer anyway. If you really look at it, like your life doesn't really become extremely safe because you have the same tribe as or the same religion as the person in office. And then that's another thing I wish we would say, and this is a platform I'm going to use to say that, please can we stop saying that you're in power? You're not in power, you're in office. There's a connotation about saying you're in power.
Right.
You're not in power. No one is in power except God. So you are in office. You're there to serve. So we say people came into power. Can we just change that language completely? Because I noticed you said that. Let's not say that.
You want to make a comment?
Wait, I haven't finished about the fear. About the fear. So what happens is also there's a fear of your career. It's I'm an elected member of the Doctors Union. It's a position. It's you're elected. So I can imagine ours is very small. We're very few doctors. At the level of Mheshimiwa here, that's a lot of people who require a lot of things. And then when you get in there, it's a career. So Sophia, if tomorrow I come and tell you you need to be out of this job, you're going to fight for your job, and you're going to do whatever you need to do to fight for your job. So they also do what they need to do to fight for their jobs, whatever it requires at the time. And most of the time, their job requires people. So people feed them what they should say and what you should do and how you should know. So the leader is there, and then all these people have their fear that he has to contain.
And how is that conquered?
Has to contain. The fear is conquered by, as I said earlier, accept yourself, then accept your neighbor, and then accept the whole community. Just say, I am actually okay because I work hard. I'm actually okay because I'm healthy. My body is healthy. I'm actually okay because I'm able to love. I am actually okay because I pray to a God. I'm fine. I'm moving and I'm doing well.
And how
then
do we
you respect other people? Like if I respect it, know my differences. I know there's many things that make me. Then I'll be curious about the many things that make Sophia, and then I'll be like, "What's Sophia about?" And then I can respect that. Then I stop fearing you.
How do you sort out the issue when I think that when Pastor gets into office, because we are from the same tribe, then I'm sorted? Because that's also the biggest challenge we face. That I think now he's our man. You know, we will get all this. Because to bring it back to resources, because that's a serious issue. People want to eat. At the end of the day, food in the stomach, that's important for everyone. So if I think, as you're saying, the fear, yes, is that if these guys come, we are finished, we won't have food. But if this one comes, we are sorted.
We're sorted, and
so just accepting each other, or is there something bigger that needs to happen somewhere?
Can I also ask that we don't just look at the National Assembly, the Senate and the members of the National Assembly as the only people we elect and the only people who are, for some reason, so guilty of different things, and all the time constantly need to be looking at them and rezoning them, and they are making us tribal. And we have other people who are elected and who extremely constantly also fail in their responsibilities, who are appointed and who also fail in their responsibilities, and also who inspire the same. They inspire the same fears. They inspire the same feeling of entitlement. What you're describing of, you know, if my guy is there, I must, even me, I'm going to eat with him. We have unions as well, and I speak because I speak as a unionist as well. Even in that level, you still find those problems. You have those same things. You have student leadership in the universities. Even on that level, you find we need someone from our area. We need. So the problem is, it's actually not. We focus so much on National Assembly and Senate and the minister and county. Can we look also at the other places where it's more subtle, but where it is extremely
We're talking about
affirmed?
Culture. You see, what we need to deal with is how do we change the culture that we have continued to perpetuate.
And as you talk about that, Pastor Reverend, I want you to also touch on this because our time is also running out. I want you to bring in the question we're asking our viewers today about national cohesion, so that these members of parliament who are saying it needs to be scrapped, they argue it's now a burden to the taxpayers. They've not done much in terms of their mandate. It was formed after the 2007 election. Many people were killed, displaced, property destroyed. So we had this body. It's been in office. And there are those who are saying, you know what, be done with it. It has not played its role. What is it for? What's your take in terms of that call to have it scrapped?
My view, I don't think scrapping is really the solution.
Has it played its role? Have you felt it?
They may not have done as much as we expected, but we cannot ignore they have done something. What I would want to happen, to see them being held to accountability, and then Parliament, through whatever process, maybe making some changes, restructuring it, maybe bringing some new people who have to be vetted because of what they stand for. But let me put it this way. In terms of us, what we do, and I'm not paid by government, we are supposed to be the greatest advocates of reconciliation and cohesion. And we use a principle that is in the Bible, where we are supposed to love our neighbor. I was very, very interested with the passage in the book of Galatians 5:14-15, which says that the entire law is fulfilled in only one principle. Love your neighbor as yourself. And it says further, if you bite and devour each other. That sounds like something we know about. Bite and devour each other. It says, then you will be destroyed by each other. Can we now change our attitude and say whether the commission will stay, the Cohesion Commission will stay there or not? There will be forums where leaders in this country, because you see what my desire would have been, instead of actually scrapping it, is to see whether it can be devolved also.
So in essence, you're saying, Reverend, there needs to be a body for Kenya to attain cohesion. There needs to be somebody.
Yes, somebody.
As Kenyans, we don't have the discipline to do it by ourselves.
But what we need further is let them be seen to be doing something, and let them also be seen not to be having double standards. Because one of the biggest challenges we have had is when people are in commissions and they are seen like there's double standards. That a hate speech for me is not a hate speech for him, so that he can get away with a statement that any Kenyan anywhere would say, well, how did he get away with that? You see what I'm saying? So, but instead of actually, what needs to happen is this: can we even have this, if the budget can allow? Because again, we talk about commissions, but remember these people are supposed to be also paid. But if this thing was devolved to where in every county there is a body that is trying to look to people who are trying to break down systems by tearing each other down, but like what scripture says here, biting and devouring each other. Can we stop this habit? And then let them be so powerful that when you are taken to court, really you are really penalized for having used the hate speech. So
you think it should stay in power, empowered some more, they should stay in office, empowered some more?
Yeah, but restructured.
But restructured. You were saying in what committee?
I'm on the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee.
So
we provide oversight over the National Cohesion and Integration Committee. And I would say two things. First of all, the culture of commissions in Kenya is getting abused. Some of these commissions, to be honest with you, are just created as avenues to give people jobs and pay for the public coffers. Commissioners such as the Judicial Service Commission, sitting allowances of 80,000 shillings per sitting. That's immoral in a country like Kenya. And this is a judiciary that's supposed to be the pillar of hope and reform in our country. Then there's a duplication of duties. What the National Cohesion and Integration Committee is doing in terms of education and awareness should be stuff that's done through our Teachers Service Commission, our school curriculum, and things like that. We have a constitution that says on standards of regional balance and gender balance and youth and people with disability in appointments. Let's do that. And then we have a judiciary and an office of the public prosecutor that should be empowered and professional. We should be having professional prosecutors and things like that to follow through on cases of people who break the law. We have the media that should know what to broadcast and not to broadcast. So we don't really need an NCIC, and even if we need it, it doesn't have to cost us as much as it costs us. But I do want to touch on a point that was brought up before about power. Let's not delude ourselves in an idealistic world. Power matters. I've grown up in a community in Kibra where if you're a poor woman selling omena or mandazi on the side of the street and you're powerless and voiceless and your child wants to go to Alliance High School and you do not have the money to pay for Alliance High School, your child's gonna rot with their talent in the slums. And you need power to make sure that someone in government will look at your child as a worthy Kenyan and give them the money to go to Alliance High School. And that's why I stood, for instance, to give you an example, to make sure that children in Kibra will get their bursaries without corruption, without nepotism, without tribalism. And that's power. I have no shame about it. There's money that comes from the government to our constituency, millions of shillings. I want to make sure it reaches our people. And if you put the wrong person in there, you might call it service or whatever. It's service too, but it's also power, because you can use it negatively and pilfer that money and the children don't get it. And that woman's life is destroyed and their child's hopes are finished. So we want to make sure that young people in this country understand you have a right to be heard. everybody in this country can aspire to leadership and to influence things positively. And I do just want to speak on behalf of the National Assembly. There's so many people of good spirit, of good intentions who have been elected. You've not heard our voices yet. We're just getting started. The system is still clogged up with some people from the old school mentality, and soon enough you will start hearing more of us. Give us a chance. We're there to stand up for our values. We're not there to enrich ourselves.
Wamboi, there is the place of power. I want you to respond to that. I know you can't wait.
I can't. Then I don't want to forget it.
Okay, say all right.
But you see, when you create it like that, when you say, don't deny that I have power because I am the MP, and because I have the MP, I'm powerful enough to get these bursaries and get them to the children, and the children will be able to come out of the slums, or they'll be able to be the best child that they can be in their life because I am powerful. You understand that you have created a new, that you've created that the only person who can be powerful is when you win an election.
No, that's it.
As opposed to saying, I exert leadership because you've given me a position of authority. You have a position of authority, and in that position of authority, I constantly exert leadership, and because I'm constantly able to exert leadership, I am able to get these children to be the best children that they can be.
You have articulated the exact same thing I'm saying,
but you call it
in a
power,
much more eloquent
power
way.
Has a
I
sense
apologize for using the word power.
Yeah, because power sounds like you need to exert leadership.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We're on the same page.
There we go. Yes.
We're on the same page, and let's make sure that the people in this country, while anyone younger, and they never have a say, and they need advocates.
And you must do it. And you must do it
all the way
for them.
from State House. In the judiciary, we have judges who should understand what righteous leadership is and what it is to dispense justice fairly for the right of all Kenyans.
So I agree. There we're together. And then also people need to know, even when they are wherever they are, you're not as powerless as you think you are. The one, like the woman you described, who was this brilliant child and is trying to get the child to get a better life for themselves. They're not that powerless. They can come to you at your office. If you say I'm so powerless, that means I'll just sit.
They have the power to put me in power.
Exactly.
And they did.
And that's only one. And also that was only the beginning. That was only the beginning. They need to hold you accountable. They need to tell you what they require. They need to articulate what they require from you, what they want for their lives, what they dream. So everyone, we're not as powerless as we think, and you don't need a title. You don't need to be an authority figure. Before that, I want to go back to the cohesion. Should we disband the national cohesion? I think we should disband anything that's not doing its purpose. Because you're taking a lot of money, you're taking resources. Stop it.
In your opinion, was NCIC serving its purpose?
If its people feel like it wasn't working, then it wasn't working.
In your opinion,
in my opinion, the people I felt have done an extremely great job for all 50 years in building national cohesion and integrity is the Public Service Commission. I'm a civil servant. Civil servants, we're like in the army, like in the police, you're deployed anywhere, regardless of where you go, where it's called service need. So wherever you are, I was working in a small mission hospital called Tomotomo next to Karatina, and my co-worker was Dr. Victor Omundi. He's not from Kisumu, he's from Eldoret. And then that's where he was born. And then we have someone else from Mombasa. And then so what you end up happening is when you sit in a social setting, whether it's in church or in a bar or wherever you go, you have the district, the provincial something, director of something, all those people, and then you have the director of something. So everyone was so mixed up and so wonderful. It was quite inspiring. That and priests and the church, because I'm Catholic, so they also send people out very far and wide. It's when you live with people. If I live there, if I stay, for example, if I stay in Garissa for a very long time, chances are I will fall in love with a young dashing Garissa man, and we'll have young dashing Garissa children who are mixed of me from Nairobi and him from Garissa. So there's a sense, so we're giving birth to people who are on the next frontier. I fear that the counties are not going to give us this opportunity. My fear of county and devolution is we're all now going to go back to our cocoons and to our safe spaces.
And I love that you're talking about that, because that's the discussion I want us to have in a short while after we cross to Siaya, because we're having so much discussion and talk about the national level in terms of cohesion. But now we have a devolved system of governance. There's still minorities and majorities in these counties.
And in the counties,
so how is that discussion again taken there so that we do not have a problem there as well? So at the end of the day, we are talking up here, but down here, it's still simmering. So we'll have that in a short while. We'll talk about that. But let's cross over to Siaya County. Fred Omulo standing by for us, a man on the ground. Today the people of Siaya decide who will be their next governor. Of course, following the nullification of Rasanga's election, the petitioner was Oduol, and there's an independent candidate there as well. We're going to get an update from him now. Let's cross over. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, Sophia. I'm here at the Siaya Municipal Polling Station. Voting has been going on without a hitch. Actually, there are hardly any queues left right now. So I've got the presiding officer of one of the streams. There are 3 streams here, and each of them has a presiding officer. I have Dorothy Onyango, who is the presiding officer of the central stream, and she'll give us a little rundown on the processes involved and what we can expect as the day wears on. So, good morning, Dorothy.
Morning.
Welcome to KTN Morning Express.
Thank you.
What are the processes involved here in verification? Because we are seeing the voting is going on apace, and there are fewer and fewer people involved. So maybe you can just give us a brief description of how the EVD is working.
Okay. When a voter comes, first we check any sign of voting. After that, you'll produce the ID card. Then the person will be identified using EVD. If the person is identified, you'll move to the second clerk to check the details in the biometric register.
Okay, have you had any problems relating to this particular process? Has any hitch come up, any voter been caught doing mischief or anything of that nature?
Okay, since far I have not met with one. Yeah.
Okay, and any troubles with identification, documents, or issues of that nature?
So far, I've not seen any.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. When will you close the polling station? And once that is done, how will the process of counting and transmitting the results take place?
Okay, we will close at 5, and by that time, when there will be some people still on the queue, we'll take the police officers to stand behind the last person so that nobody comes from out to join the line. After completing the queue is when we'll seal the ballot boxes. Then we will break for 2 minutes to build consensus. After that, we'll start counting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And once the counting is done and you have the results and they've been verified by the agents, how will you transmit these?
Okay, after counting, we'll enter them in Form 35. After entering them in Form 35, we will then enter the results in the phones, then we transmit to the tallying center.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the transmission, you'll be doing transmission in how many ways? 1 or 2? Because I understand there's an electronic system, and then you also have to have the form delivered to the returning officer. So maybe you can just describe.
Okay. Immediately we finish, we'll transmit when we are still here. After that, we'll take some returns or reports, hand delivery to the returning officer at the tallying center.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. So apart from that, what can we expect as the day wears on?
Okay. What I can say, at the time we were starting, the queue was a bit long, but now I can see the queue has reduced. But if I compare this with the one we did in general election, the turnout is not good, because during the general election, at around this time, the queue was almost reaching the gate, because I worked in the same station. I was here even during general election.
Thank you very much, Dorothy Onyango, presiding officer of the Central Stream here at Siaya Municipal Polling Station. And as she has just said, from what we see over the last 1.5 to 2 hours, the turnout is already looking bad. What we can probably hope is that voters will be mobilized somehow, some way to come in as the day wears on. But so far, compared to what happened at the general elections, the turnout is not looking good. At this point, I will hand back to you, Sophia Wanuna, in the studio.
Fred Omulo, thank you so much. Speaking there to the presiding officer for that, in that particular polling station. It's a Siaya gubernatorial race. They have over 300,000 registered voters there, and we're hearing them from the presiding officer who was there as well during the general election, talking about the disparity, the difference in terms of the numbers they're seeing today and during the general election, saying the queues were much longer then. But as usually is the case, and it's usually the biggest concern when it comes to by-elections, it's out in the middle of the week, people are working, turnout always a challenge. So it will be interesting to see how these numbers play out, because remember, in that particular election, in the general election, the competition was very stiff between Colonel Rosanga and William Oduol. It was a very close call, but he won. The election was nullified. Who will be the next governor in Siaya? They decide. They are voting today. No incidences reported so far, but heavy security deployed in that particular area. You'll continue to see those pictures of just the voters going out there. She also took us through the process, what the voters coming out are expected to do, the process of voting. And of course, after voting, everybody is required to go back home, not mulling around the polling stations. That is one of the things always that causes those kind of clashes, especially between opposing sides. So there's that by-election, and of course there's Kibwezi West Parliamentary. Ashomilu is there for us. We'll be linking up with her shortly. And Matungulu Parliamentary by-election as well. Samogina is there. The turnout, as I mentioned, a big concern in all these by-elections. But by end of today, we should know the provisional results will be out, and we'll know who the elected, at least, how the numbers are looking and who the elected members are going forward. If anything happens, we'll be bringing you up to speed with that right here on KTN. We're covering this by-elections for you the only way we can. And we continue with our discussion. We just have about 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, to wind up our discussion this morning. How time flies, unfortunately. But before we crossed to Siaya, we were talking about the question of devolving this conversation as well, as we've gotten into the system of devolved governance. And I'll give you an example. We're talking about the fact that there are still majorities and minorities, even in the county level. When you're talking about Migori, the majority there, the Luo, the minority, the Kuria. I'm talking about Bungoma. We have Bukusus as the majority, and the minority are the Sabaot. So at the end of the day, there's still the question of, now that we have these mini governments around the country, 47 of them in total, how then do we ensure cohesion works there as well, Pastor? Very quickly.
I think what needs to happen is that the conversation need to be devolved, not necessarily through commissions that are going to be another way of just eating into what is there. Because I think one of the greatest challenges, nobody has wanted really to address this problem, is our bill, the kind of salaries that we had the president one time talk about that, where it is, and internationally what is expected. And even when we did the constitution, and apparently, and I'm not ashamed of this, I'm one of those people who really was saying no to the constitution, because I felt some things need to be done in that constitution before passing it. So that's something, even if I now celebrate that we have a constitution, I've never changed. I've never changed my position, because nobody at the point in which we were working on this constitution spoke about the financing of the same. We all are looking at the great services, the great work, but right now, you can see the struggle is between how do we devolve now the funds down there. But let somebody tell me, what are we going to do to make sure that government money does not end up into an individual's pocket because of corruption? Because if all the monies that we are having and God has blessed us is going to the good of all, it can be great. So let me put it this way. We have 3 institutions that we really need to pay attention. If we are going to have cohesion, it has to begin at family level. When I'm speaking to my kids as they grow up, let me tell them, Kenya, we are a diverse country. Then let the church and the mosque and the synagogue, whatever people are taught, to be reminded we are one country, we have national value, and that is to build to become one, and not to figure how we can tear each other down. Then the government, whatever the government is required to do. I like what she said about the public, the Public Service Commission. In the way of deployment, let's try to get people mixed up so that those sort of things can be sorted out. And one time they used to say that when you're in the office, you need to speak the official language. That is not there. Sometimes we go there and when we talk, we put you off because you can't hear what we are saying. So we can even be undermining you when you are there and you don't know what we are doing. This stereotype need to stop, but let it begin at home, within our churches, and within other institutions of the government. But let us not deceive ourselves. By the end of the day, Kenyans have to solve our own problems. Because if we were looking to America, they had shut the government, now they're opening it. If that's where we're expecting to get help, are they going to help us first or even the government. So we have to sort out that.
Excellent conclusion there, Reverend. I'll come to you, and you mentioned something about also our curriculum, education playing a role in this, so that as we're having the kids going through education, it's a conversation being had at that level as well, a very important level.
Well, let me talk on that education bit again and just say, we really need a first-class education system to make sure that our youth population is an asset to this country and an asset within their communities and their families, and not a liability. We're going to have a lot of instability in this country if we do not provide the training and the skills and the access to credit and capital. So we must invest in our youth properly, and that way everybody's successful and they can go marry in Muranga or Machakos or whatever, and it's all fine. But if we don't do that, we will have a huge population of young people who are hopeless, desperate, and available to be instigated for violence, as happened in 2007. It was young people. Nobody has said in the cases against ICC that Honorable William Ruto or President Kenyatta held a machete and hacked down a single person. That was done by young Kenyan men doing that to other Kenyans. And if we do not give young Kenyan men such great investment and opportunity that they do not have time to think about 500 shillings to hold a machete to go kill a fellow Kenyans, we're sitting on a time bomb, we're fooling ourselves. So I understand there are people who might say, let's not have family planning, let our population grow. But take care of that population. So it turns out to be something you've invested in and developed as a great national resource, our human resource for potential. So it's more valuable than the oil in Turkana. So we're exporting brains and doctors and skills around the world, and Kenyans can come back home with ideas from all over the place to build this country, even if we don't mine any dam.
And as you conclude the question of devolving the conversation, getting it down to Mama Mboga down there as well.
I would say, I thank the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. They provided a deterrent ability through some of their campaigns, proactively engaging Kenyans on peace issue. I think our political leaders who have bad instinct, who might want to divide us instead of uniting us, had to check themselves what they were thinking about the ICC. And so the biggest risk, I would say, to me, is not just bringing this conversation down. I'd say a key priority for our country, as we've seen what has happened in the past and we go forward, the biggest risk for instability and division in this country is the issue of the ICC. The ICC as an institution is very good, but the two cases we have right there now are not the right cases. And we have to find a way to diplomatically or politically bring those cases back to Kenya and have them handled here. We have to find a way to give compensation to victims who suffered. And the government of President Kibaki failed in resettling IDPs, in doing compensation and bringing justice to the people who suffered. And now the showcase of two of these cases in the ICC are not going to bring that justice that we wanted for victims. These cases are going to collapse anyway, even if they proceed, but it will leave us.
That is a discussion, of course, that we could have for a very long time, because there's so many angles to that, but we must wind up now. And Wamboi, I'll allow you to wind up for us.
On cohesion, I still think I'm a great believer in government, and I'm a great believer in public service, because I believe government has the machinery, government has the money, government has the responsibility to do things. I'm not going to say power, as much as Mishimi would like me to say that. No, I think for even in the role of national cohesion, on Kenyanness and on cohesion, state machinery should not be left too far behind. We shouldn't leave the work to people in church. We shouldn't just leave the work to politicians. We shouldn't just leave the work to other media. We're always getting blamed for things. We also have an extremely powerful state machinery. The state can take people, because government is people. So one of the things that you can do is use the machinery that is in place. Let the Public Service Commission continue with its work in terms of employment, even at the county level. As much as they want to own and they want to have their own, there is a very positive outcome that has come from the role of the way the public service takes all these Kenyan resources in terms of human beings into one port and sends them where service is needed. That has helped build and it will help restructure and rethink and reintegrate people from where they are, so that they don't have to stay in one place. So I think as much as we are looking away from the national government because of past sins, we must also look at the national government in terms of past rewards and how far they've taken us so far. So they do have a role to play say in that. In the Kenyanness, I think I will come down to the individual. Accepting yourself, first of all, as I said before, and then respecting yourself, and then respecting other people and whatever that they have to bring to the table, and seeing people as equal and able to take us where we want to do. And then in the individual, you've got to dream Kenya. You absolutely have to dream Kenya. We're not going anywhere if we cannot dream this thing. If you can't see it, and then dream big. See a Kenya that is beyond what everyone has ever thought about. Because Kenya, I tell you, is the most special country, as you said. It is incredible. Wherever you look, we just all the time showing up everywhere. I'm going to say it because it's obvious. The fact that the president of one of the most powerful countries in the world has his roots right here. As we can talk about the politics as to how he's not really Kenyan, but that's amazing in itself. That's amazing. Our ICC, it's amazing and then not amazing so much. But then the fact that our issue can become a regional issue, an African issue, and now it's about UN Security Council, it's a global issue. We have been, where we are geopolitically located, we have been able to do incredible things. Everywhere you go in doctors, the best doctors in America, amongst them, come from Kenya. There's something sweet, something delicious about our blood. And we must explore that blood in us, and it's sweet, it's delicious, it's capable, it's hopeful. So let's and everything that we've been through. I'll give a terrible little example, but Tanzania has not been through the political strain that we have in Kenya, yet they've never been able to catch up with us economically. As much as we have all this politics that just takes everything, we're still going forward. The West, terrorists, they just seem to want this delicious blood of ours and to take it somewhere else. They keep coming for us. So we are special people. We are special people. We are incredible. Our country is beautiful. Our country is capable, and our people are. Let's dream this thing, and let's dream it really incredibly big. In whatever field you are, dream it big and big.
Let me just say one thing.
We must wind up. My director says we must wind up. She's been winding me down for the last 5 minutes, so I've just really been pushing it. So I cannot push it any further. Dr. Wambui Waithaka, Treasurer Doctors Union, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Ken, of course, MP Kibra, and of course, Reverend Dr. Geoffrey Njuguna, Pastor Deliverance Church, Senior Pastor there. Thank you so much all for joining us this morning. A very passionate conclusion to our discussion. Let's dream Kenya. It's a beautiful country. There's so much potential, and it's all about us. It boils down to my responsibility, yours, and the other person, and just making sure this works so that we can live together harmoniously and ensure we go forward and become the Kenya we want to see in coming years. We're glad you're watching KTN. This is Morning Express, 8:24 a.m. on this big day for the by-elections that are going on around the country. We'll continue to update you on what's happening on the ground. Remember, our question of the day, we're asking you whether you support the calls by some members of parliament to scrap the NCIC, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. Do you feel they've fulfilled their mandate? Have they played their role in a way that satisfies you? Do you think they have just been using up your money and not really doing much in terms of ensuring that cohesion is attained and fostered in Kenya? Let us know what your thoughts are. Many of your comments already coming through. I will be sampling them in a short while. At KTN Kenya is our Twitter handle. At Sophia Wanuna, you can tweet me directly. And of course, remember to use the hashtag Morning Express KTN. Also 22155 is our SMS number. Always an amazing conversation here on Morning Express on Thursdays around our nation going forward. It's all about Kenya. This is our country. We don't have another home. And so here on Morning Express, we're the first and biggest champions of ensuring this conversation just continues. And we hope you're going to be having it at home, over lunch or dinner. Keep it going. In schools, at church, in government, wherever you are, whatever field or grouping you find yourself in, push this conversation forward. We must have it because Kenya must work for each and every one of us. We now take a short commercial break. We return in a moment.